In the chronicles of American history, few moments remain as haunting and consequential as the Battle of the Little Bighorn. Among the figures who stood witness to that day was Edward Godfrey, Jr., an officer of the 7th Cavalry, whose vivid and harrowing recollection offers one of the clearest windows into Custer's last stand. Tonight we go further, tracing the fine details of General Custer's orders and the unfolding chain of events that led to one of the most notorious military disasters in U.S. history. From the carefully calculated movements along the Rosebud River to Custer's fateful advance toward the Little Bighorn, we examine the crucial decisions that set the stage for a clash of cultures, strategies, and destinies. Before we embark on this deep dive, be sure to like this video and subscribe to the channel so you don't miss a single chapter of this dramatic story. Let us uncover the truth together. Edward Godfrey, Jr., one of the few surviving officers of the 7th Cavalry Regiment, was an experienced horseman who personally witnessed the events of the Little Bighorn. His gripping narrative forms a critical piece of the historical puzzle, shining light on the triumphs and tragedies of Custer's final fight. Before we begin, don't forget to like this video and subscribe to help us keep history alive. At the mouth of the Rosebud River in the Montana Territory, General Custer received official orders dated June 22, 1876, which stated, "When your regiment is ready, the Brigadier General commanding directs you to proceed up the Rosebud in pursuit of the Indians whose trail Major Reno discovered several days prior." The department commander does not wish to give you overly specific instructions that might hinder your freedom of movement as you close with the enemy, because the situation makes detailed orders difficult, and even if it were not, he holds full confidence in your energy, skill, and judgment. However, he will express his recommendations and expects you to follow them unless compelling reasons force you to depart from them. He suggests that you continue advancing along the Rosebud until you can learn which direction the trail ultimately leads. If it leads toward the Little Horn, as is most probable, you are advised to keep pushing south, perhaps even to the headwaters of the Tongue River, then wheel toward the Little Horn, remaining mindful to feel constantly to your left to block the Indians from escaping southward or southeastward around your flank. Colonel Gibbon's column is at present moving toward the mouth of the Big Horn. Once there, it will cross the Yellowstone and push up at least to the forks of the Big and Little Horn. The plan is for the Indians, if they are indeed along the Little Horn, to be almost entirely encircled between the two converging columns, leaving no route of escape. Of course, further actions will depend on circumstances as they unfold. The department commander asks that you thoroughly examine the upper reaches of Tulloch's Creek while advancing along the Rosebud, and if possible, dispatch a scout to carry word to Colonel Gibbon with your findings. Colonel Gibbon's troops will reconnoiter the lower portion of the creek. Should the river be navigable, the supply steamer will push all the way up the Big Horn to the forks. Colonel Gibbon's column will march in company with the department commander, who instructs you to report to him there once your regiment's rations are exhausted, unless further orders reach you before that point. With highest respect, your obedient servant, Captain E. W. Smith, Acting Assistant Adjutant General, 18th Infantry. These orders gave General Custer a clear idea of where the hostile Indians were likely located. Some historians have argued that Custer was fully aware that General Terry's column was scheduled to reach the mouth of the Little Bighorn by June 26th, and that the two commands were meant to rendezvous on that date. But Terry's instructions never specified when his column would arrive, and since his troops had provisions for only 15 days, Custer was not expected to reach that point before July 5th or 6th. On June 22nd, the regiment broke camp at noon. The call to move forward sounded, and the troops filed out in columns of 4, each troop followed by its pack mules. Generals Terry, Gibbon, and Custer reviewed the regiment as it passed, offering a word or salute to each officer. At first, the pack train caused trouble. Load spilled before leaving camp, and the mules straggled badly throughout the march. But once Lieutenant Mathey took control, order was restored, and the train remained efficient after the Indian trail was found. By 4 p.m., the regiment had covered 12 miles and made camp. At sunset, the officers' call was sounded. They gathered around Custer's bivouac, squatting in small groups near his bedroll. The mood was quiet and heavy. Custer addressed them, saying that marches would begin promptly at 5 o'clock each morning, and bugle calls would be used only in emergencies. He reminded them that the troop commanders were seasoned officers who could manage their own commands, and that from headquarters only the departure and arrival times would be regulated. Matters such as halts, grazing, watering, and reveille were left to the judgment of the troop leaders. He emphasized the importance of keeping proper supporting distance, neither crowding the column nor outrunning the scouts. Custer said he trusted the officers' loyalty and judgment, warning that they might face at least 1,000 warriors, perhaps more if aided by agency Indians, totaling as many as 1,500. He had studied Indian Bureau reports and Washington dispatches to estimate the hostile strength and felt confident that their numbers would not exceed that figure. Custer declined General Terry's offer of reinforcements from the 2nd Cavalry, insisting the 7th was sufficient to defeat any gathering of hostile forces. He also refused the Gatling guns, fearing their poor horses and the rugged terrain would slow his column's advance. He urged conservation of rations and the endurance of the animals, as they might be afield for some time. The regiment would march between 25 and 30 miles per day. Custer rarely spoke so openly, making this address unusual. He showed a rare willingness to consider suggestions from his subordinates, and his calm, almost inviting manner left a deep impression. As the officers dispersed, Lieutenants McIntosh, Wallace, and Godfrey walked silently back toward their bivouac. Wallace broke the silence, remarking, "Godfrey, I think General Custer is going to be killed." When Godfrey asked why, Wallace replied, "I have never heard Custer speak like that before." I gave the necessary orders for a silent reveille and completed my men's preparations for the march. I also issued instructions in case of a night attack. The stable guards, packers, and cooks were to quiet and secure the animals, while the rest of the men gathered at the designated point to await further orders. No man was permitted to fire without an officer's command. I inspected the herd to ensure their safety. As I did, I noticed Mitch Boyer, Bloody Knife, Half Yellowface, and others speaking together near the scouts' bivouac. Boyer asked if I had fought the Sioux before. I told him yes. When he asked how many we expected to face, I estimated between 1,000 and 1,500. When he asked if I thought we could beat them, I replied confidently, "Oh yes, I think so." Boyer looked serious. "Well," he said, "I tell you, we're going to have a damn big fight." At 5 o'clock the next morning, June 23rd, Custer mounted, flanked by 2 sergeants carrying his personal guidon and the regimental standard, and gave the order to move out up the Rosebud. About 8 miles in, we came upon the first Indian camp site, which showed signs of a large village. We mistook the many wickiups and brush shelters as dog kennels, but later learned they had housed agency Indians who had joined the hostiles. As we passed through 3 successive campsites, we stopped at each one, studying pony droppings, lodge trails, and tracks to estimate the number of lodges. These discussions consumed our thoughts as we marched. After 33 kilometers, we made camp at 5 p.m. On June 24th, we encountered additional campsites, each appearing similar in size and age. In truth, these were continuous camps of different bands, not the repeated halts of a single village as we assumed. Past a large camp where the grass had been beaten flat by immense herds, we discovered the frame of a Sundance lodge containing a white man's scalp, evidence that agency Indians had joined the hostile cause. Fresh pony tracks and the sight of an Indian on foot prompted a halt. The officers gathered to confer. As we dispersed, a southerly gust blew down Custer's headquarters flag. After replanting it, it fell again until we secured it with a piece of sagebrush. At the time, we thought little of it, but Lieutenant Wallace later recalled it as a grim omen. The day's march was slow and wearying, with long pauses while scouts worked ahead. To raise less dust, we traveled along separate trails. Large herds of ponies could be seen across the valley. There were reports of smoke signals, though they were not confirmed. After 28 miles, we camped beneath a bluff at dusk, hiding our presence as best we could. Fires were extinguished after dinner, and around 11:30 p.m. we prepared for a night march. Lieutenant Hare and I tried to nap about 9:30 p.m., but were awakened by a voice pointing us out in the dark. We were told Custer wanted all officers at headquarters. Guided only by a single candle, we picked our way through thickets, sleeping men, and tethered horses until we reached headquarters. There, Custer informed us that the trail led to the Little Bighorn. We would march at once to reach a concealed position near the divide before daybreak, then prepare to attack on the 26th after locating the village and studying the ground. Lieutenant Hare rode ahead with the scouts while the rest of us returned to our companies. The night march was difficult, with noise and dust making it hard to hear or see. The drifting dust clouds became our guide, and we occasionally caught distant whistles or shouts. Troops were sent forward to listen for sounds from the scouts. Around 2 a.m. on June 25th, we halted to wait for news from the front after covering roughly 10 kilometers. Some men unsaddled and brewed coffee, though the alkali water was nearly undrinkable. Before 8 a.m., Custer, riding bareback, visited each troop, ordered preparations for the march, and relayed the scouts' reports about the village's location. I saw him speaking earnestly with Bloody Knife and the other scouts, who seemed tense. Bloody Knife said we would find enough Sioux to fight for 2 or 3 days. Custer smiled and replied, "I guess we can finish them in 1." The march began at 8 a.m. and ended around 10:30 a.m. in a ravine where we were ordered to remain silent, stay out of sight, and conceal our presence from the enemy. It is rare in Indian warfare for a commander to observe the enemy's position in daylight, since Indians usually know the soldiers are nearby. When following a trail, signs indicate how long ago the Indians passed. The goal is to reach their village at night and strike at dawn, forcing a quick engagement. Often, little is known of their numbers beyond what can be guessed from the trail. Attacks are planned secretly, with success relying heavily on chance. Daylight approaches are almost always detected. Once alerted, Indians might delay the soldiers with decoys, give their women and children time to flee, and drive away their pony herds, making pursuit difficult. In civilized warfare, battles can be fought over days, with both sides well aware of each other's numbers and positions. Here, there is no such luxury. Speed and suddenness are everything. The hostile camp was fully prepared for battle, and new soldiers were in the field, though they did not realize how close we were until that morning. Some young men leaving for an agency in Nebraska saw our dust, returned, and warned the village. The attack was therefore not a complete surprise. The camp had been pitched at this spot for 2 or 3 days, not because it was a battleground, but simply because it was a convenient camping site along the river.